traffic light going on. Everybody, my name is Ethan Hibbard, coming at you live. Well, not exactly live, but you guys get the idea. On the journey of creating a comic book. We're on our, I think, 4th or 5th video. I'm going to stop keeping track of how many videos I'm doing after now because it's going to start getting to pile up and start being a lot, but we're on a next video. And yes, if I've said it once, I've said it a couple of times. This video, or this project that I'm working on and making this comic book, is still in the very early stages. However, we're going to keep on going and keep on traveling on a little journey that we're going on here. This week's video is going to be the first of a couple of videos that I'm going to be making in regards to world building. The first, my project that I've been working on for the past couple of weeks here is creating the setting for my comic book, Summit View County, which I sort of talked about a little bit last week, but I'm going to start going over it a little bit more in depth today, as well as in the next couple of videos that I'm going to be coming out with in the next few weeks. So today I'm going to be going over the first couple of steps of world building, at least my first couple of steps in doing so, and I'm going to be showing you guys my way of telling you how you can do it yourselves if you're trying to work on a project where you need to create a setting and have a world be built. This is some good information for you guys, I'm hoping anyways. So let's get right on into it. Why is it important to build a world when telling a story? Well, today we're going to go over a couple of reasons why it is. First things first, I think it's really important if you're working on a project like this to have a notebook, or in my case, I have a sketchbook where I write down all of my ideas and I sketch things into it, and I think that's really beneficial to be able to have an idea pop up into your mind and have it written down so that you don't forget it, so it doesn't disappear, and that way if you don't want to even use it later on, you don't have to, but it's better to have it if you do want to use it, and then you can elaborate on it by just writing all this stuff down. It's what I do. It's what I recommend doing. So why is it important to build a world when you're telling a story, at least when you're telling a story of this sort of magnitude? Well, number one, it establishes a setting for your story. I'm sure when you were learning about writing stories in schools, the word setting came into mind. That's where the story takes place. And every story has to take place somewhere. Depending on where it is, it could be infinitely different places, but a story happens somewhere. And it happens sometime. It'll happen during a time period. It could be, again, infinite time periods, far, far reaching into the past, far, far reaching into the future. It's all over the place, but it's very good to have that point marked when you're writing a story. Where is it and when is it? Write this stuff down when you're doing so. Write down where your story takes place, when it takes place. Write down the significance of why it takes place during a certain time period, or why it has to take place within a certain area. That's very important when you're making a comic book because it helps you make things more detailed. It helps you understand where your story is coming from more. And it ties into the living conditions and the backgrounds of your characters too. For example, you can write down how these particular settings in which you're living or in which you're writing about is affecting your characters. Do they love where they live? Do they hate where they live? Do they want to leave? Do they want to stay? Where do they work? How do they get around? What do they do for fun? That sort of stuff is sort of built upon the setting of whatever story that you're writing about. And it's for that reason that it's good to establish a setting and understand to yourself as well as to your audience and be able to explain where it is, what's going on in it, what type of setting is it, where and when, that good stuff. Yeah, and my brain is just turned off, so just give me 1 second to turn it back on. My comic book, as I sort of mentioned in the last video, is a town called Summit View County, and it's in a 50s era town. There's some wild stuff going on upstairs right now. Farm town. So it's town of my comic book, Summit View County, is a farm town that takes place in the 50s, or at least sort of the 50s. It's a totally different time branching from what we live in today, and it's totally science fiction, but it's supposed to take place in the 50s in a farm town. It's sort of in the middle of nowhere. It's not really connected to big cities or other connections, branches, pathways to other towns. It's sort of off on its own, and it's secluded by giant mountains that slant up, sort of creating a circle around the town, and then one exit point where the road comes in to where you come in into this sort of pocket where the town takes place. And there's fields, forests, big mountains, big like ranch houses, stuff like that. It's very encapsulated in nature. The twist of which is that it's been overrun and populated by extraterrestrial life. And now I'm going to go a little bit more into rules that are applied to this in the next section that I'm going to go over in this video, which I guess we can start going into right now. Once you establish a setting for a story that you're planning on writing, or just telling in general, the rules of your world can follow. Now, the rules of my world that I'm building right now, in the process of anyways, is mostly fantastical. It doesn't have a whole lot of seriousness. It doesn't take itself too seriously, all within the realm of general science fiction. So if it sort of holds a bar where pretty much anything can happen, which can be very positive when you're writing a story, but it can also be kind of tricky to write a story where rules are a little bit negated, because when you have these rules, they sort of help build believability to your world. Your world needs to follow, with some exceptions, which my world obviously has a lot of exceptions to this, but it needs to speak towards believability. When you have well-established rules, you can do a great number of things, and your audience will connect with your story better if you have a believable setting with believable rules. You can't have, say, you're trying to write a story about a very realistic New York City, where everything is very grounded in realism. The setting is very, as opposed to fiction, very realistic, let's say. You can't have unicorn prancing through the streets of New York with a dragon flying above it. It's just that breaks the conventions and the rules that you've established through a realistic city, which would be your setting. And so when you have these rules in place, mine being a little bit more liquidated and lenient, because I'm not trying to go for something realistic, I'm trying to go for something a little bit more cartoony, which still has a good effect to reach a connection with people, just so long as you're able to stay consistent with what you've established prior. That's what I'm trying to explain. I might be doing a bad job about it, but that's what I'm trying to explain. Your setting establishes your rules, and if you follow those rules and you keep everything consistent with that setting that you've put into place, then your story is a lot easier to connect with. And that's what I'm trying to do with my comic book, is make the rules a little not so broad and not so rigid. I want them to be more lenient and more goofy, citing to a more cartoony aspect. My setting, the setting of which I've established farmhouses, old farm town buildings, farm-like culture with a small town with a lot of people ingrained in their own communities, ranches, fields, sweeping mountains. Nature is a big aspect of the setting of my town, where there's forests, giant mountains, fields. Some of the characters in the story are animals, but it keeps the tone of being cartoony, with some of those animals speaking English and some of those animals being more human-like in nature, which, if you know about Milkshake, obviously, Milkshake is a talking, flying superhero cow. But the twist is that I have that element of science fiction, and that allows for a little bit of bending some of the rules that would have been established with just a farm town. They shake up what was previously established with futuristic technologies, aliens, as well as other mythical curiosities that are filling the lands of Summit View County, which is something that I've probably going to go further into next video, is about the population of Summit View County. That'll probably be my next project that I'm going to work through this next week, and I'll get into that all next video. For this week is I made a list of significant locations, areas that are inside of Summit View County that are going to take place in the story, where people are going to actually be either living in or taking part in actions in, which I'm really good at talking when I say that. That was a real bummer of a sentence. But these locations are stuff like The Point, which I'll show you in a couple of seconds here. The Point, Bubba's Diner, which I showed you in the last video. In fact, I could show you right now again. No, I can't show you right now again. Sorry about that. But stuff like City Hall, Jesse's house, the veterinary clinic where Harriet works, the post office, stuff like that, etc., etc. And what I did is I sketched The Point, which I'm going to cut the video here so that you can see that sketch. So here you can see that sketch of The Point. It's kind of zoomed in, and I realize I'm putting this in the video after I filmed everything else. This is the last thing I'm doing on the video. I say so much in these videos. I am going to try to work on that. I am going to try to say less, but I apologize for how much times I've said in this video. I will say it more, and I will continue to do so as this video progresses, but I am going to do a concerted effort to not say so much. Anyways, you can see the sketch of The Point. It's sort of a hangout place where all of the kids of Summit View County come up to party and hang out. And it's the best view of the city. You can see the city in the distance, and this image is kind of zoomed a bit more in than I would have liked. But if you check out my Instagram, you can see a more clear picture of Summit View County from The Point. And that's the image of it. That's what it looks like, and that's the sketch I was talking about before. So let's continue on with this discussion. And I am so sorry again for how much times I am and have and will continue to say that word It's driving me insane, probably as much as it's driving you guys insane, and I apologize for it. However, it's going to keep on happening, I think, because I don't know what other word to use. So based off of that sketch, I took the road layout that I did, and you can see here, kind of the road layout in the background, right here, and I zoomed it out, and I took all of the points, all of the significant locations that I had written down in a list, and I marked them on places in the map. And what this does is it allows me to visualize where everything is taking place. It allows me to get a laywork of everything that I need to conceptualize visually. I need to make concept arts for the fairgrounds, the wreckage, the bus station, city hall, post office, power plants, libraries, hospitals, airports, Bubba Moon's diners, schoolhouses, Jesse's house, Harriet's house. The list goes on and on and on. That's why world building and city planning is a big project, which is why I've allotted myself a lot of time to work on it for. But what you can do is make that map of whatever place that you're planning on working on and building upon, and it helps you visualize things. And that's why I printed it out here, so that I can have that laywork and be able to visualize, okay, where is this happening? What does it look like when they're there? And how can I put that on paper to visualize it for an audience? Over that in a further video, more so about designing the city itself. That's going to be another video to come. Right now I was just talking about significances of world building. That's what I wanted to go over in this video, so we'll talk more about that in a future video. Review, just because I feel like I put in a lot of information into this video. It's important to build a world when you're telling a story, because it establishes a setting which allows you to be able to connect that setting visually and connect it to your characters. And by establishing a setting, you're able to put forth rules that you're going to follow in your story that make it more grounded. It doesn't have to be grounded in reality, but grounded towards the rules that you establish in your setting. That allows people to connect with it better and be able to believe in it more, even if it is a goofy farm town in the 50s that's been invaded by aliens, which is what I'm creating and is where I'm coming from. This information is helpful. I hope those of you that are planning on writing a story yourselves get some good information from this. I'm looking forward to hearing from anybody that's building a world. I'd love to hear some ideas for what you're working on, or maybe some ideas that I could implement into my book and my story. I look forward to speaking with you guys about that. That would be really cool. And that'll be all for today's video. Feel free to check out all of the links in my description, where I have linked to my social media accounts, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that good stuff. I'll look forward to speaking with you guys in the next video, talking more about world building, more about city planning, that good stuff, and we will continue on with our journey of creating a comic book. We are still in the very beginning, initial steps, but we are plowing through and keeping on going. So I wish all of you guys a good rest of your night, good rest of your day, week, month, year, whatever it is for you guys. I wish you guys have the best of it. Have a good night and stay tuned for my next video. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye. In today's video, once more, a huge shout out to Scuff Station Gaming for partnering with me and my channel and helping me make these videos. SSG is an esports organization that competes and creates content in a whole variety of games. Rocket League is one of their big ones. One thing that I wanted to put a shout out for you guys is tomorrow they're holding a charity event for St. Jude's Hospital, research on cancer. There's going to be an event on Scuff Station Gaming where they're going to be doing a 3v3 Rocket League tournament where every score that they make is going to be a $5 donation to St. Jude's Hospital. And so feel free to check that out, donate to that, give them a good support, and I thank them a lot for helping me and partnering with me on this channel. Thanks again.